This video will show you how to replace the ignition coils on a Ford Edge with a 3.5 liter engine. You'll have 6 of these, 3 on each valve cover. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The ignition coils that are located along the backside are the hardest to gain access to. We're going to have to dislodge our plastic intake, so those will be the ones that I show you how to replace. Now the first thing we want to do is make our way along the driver's side of the engine compartment. This is where we can see our vehicle's battery. As we make our way along the rearward side of this is where we can see our negative battery terminal. Let's use a 10mm to loosen the hardware just enough that we can remove the terminal end from the battery post. We'll set that aside. Now after that, we're going to start removing our air inlet tube. Looking along the battery side of the air inlet tube, we can see that we do have a vent tube in this area. So I'm just going to take hold of the entire thing and I'm going to carefully pull it out and away. Once I have that dislodged, of course, a quick inspection. This looks good. We're going to start loosening our clamp that holds the inlet tube to our upper air filter housing. You can use an 8mm or a flathead screwdriver. Loosen the clamp enough that we can start sliding this out of place. Now towards the engine side of this tube, we can see that we do have a breather tube that leads down to our front valve cover. We're going to start dislodging this. There's a locking tab. I'm pulling that forward, sliding it away, and then you should be able to dislodge that tube. Now as we start looking along the battery side of the inlet tube, making our way underneath where the master cylinder reservoir is, we can see our next clamp holding this in place. Just use your 8mm to loosen this clamp so we can slide this out of position. Just a quick inspection of this and we'll set it aside. After removing that, we're paying attention to our throttle body. One thing that I would note about this is you never want to press on the butterfly valve inside of the throttle body. That can cause calibration issues. We'll start with the electrical connector. This has a red locking tab. You're going to have to gently lift this up just enough that you can squeeze in on the black tab underneath it, and then we should be able to lift this up and out of position. After that, just a quick inspection for corrosion. I'm just going to use a flat blade screwdriver. You can also use a small angled pick if necessary. This looks good. Let's set that wiring aside for now. If you were looking just underneath the throttle body, you're going to find that you have an 8mm headed mounting bolt holding the throttle body assembly down to a bracket. Let's go ahead and remove that mounting bolt. Get that loose enough I can start removing it by hand. Just a quick inspection of that. As we make our way up along the top of the throttle body, we have an evap tube. You can see that we have a yellow lock on this connector. For this, I'm going to be using a small angled pick. As far as this angled pick, I'm going to try to make my way along the back side. Now, if you're looking at this yellow locking tab, it actually has 2 locking ears. The locking ears are on the back side here, which is why I'm using a small angled pick. I'm just trying to grab onto my locking ear, and as you can tell, it starts pulling away. Now, of course, I do need to make my way along the next locking ear as well. For that, we can just pivot this as necessary. See if we can make our way under with a small screwdriver. Now that we have that broken free, I'm going to fully remove that yellow locking tab. Let's pull this out of place. Now there's going to be 2 hoses up along the top rear of the intake that we need to gain access to. To easily gain access, I'm going to dislodge this valve. You're going to find that you have an electrical connector. The electrical connector has a locking tab up along the top. We're just squeezing that in and disconnecting it. No corrosion there. We'll set it aside. Continuing on, as far as the valve is concerned, we're going to dislodge that from its bracket. Looking along the side, you can see that there is 1 locking tab. We're just gently tugging on that in one direction or the other, and this should slide out of position. There we are. Just work that off of there. We can see the locking tab. That's still in good usable order, so we're going to set this aside. So now with that out of the way, as we make our way past where the throttle body is, we can see one of our hoses. This has a squeezable clamp. We're going to squeeze the clamp and slide the hose out of position towards the driver's side. Just using an angled hose pick, slide that right off of there. quick inspection of the hose. Still soft and pliable, not torn, worn, or damaged. We'll set that aside. As we make our way towards our next hose, we're going to continue on by dislodging this wire first. We have a mounting point right here. Let's go ahead and pull that away from its mounting stud. That looks good. As we make our way up to this electrical connector, you have a locking tab up along the top. This locking tab will pivot forward towards the front of the engine compartment, and then we can dislodge the electrical connector. Just going to use an angled pick. No corrosion there. Set that aside. At this point, we can see the hose all the way back here. This has a squeezable clamp, just as the other hose did, along the other side of the intake. Let's go ahead and squeeze that clamp, and we'll slide this out of position. All right, I can take hold of this, slide it off of there by hand. Now let's make our way along the front of the intake. Along the front area, you're going to find that you have 3 mounting tabs, holding our wiring harness and coolant tube in place to the plastic intake. We're going to carefully separate these 3 areas. There we are. So as you start making your way along the front driver's side corner of this, you're going to find that we have an electrical wiring harness that goes across the corner. We have to dislodge this area as well. Just have one locking tab under there. Let's make sure that we cover the throttle body and the port leading into our upper air filter housing. As I mentioned with the throttle body, do not press on the butterfly valve. I'm only lightly pressing this in here. I'm not pressing on that butterfly valve. This is just going to protect our air filter on the opposite side of this. And now we can use some compressed air. Now we have 6 bolts holding the upper plastic intake to the lower intake. You're going to find that you have 2 along the center and 2 along each edge. For the removal, we're starting on the outer edges and then we'll finish in the center. As you can tell, the last mounting bolt is considerably longer than all others. Now we can take hold of that plastic intake and lift it up and out of position. Now as we continue on, we need to make sure nothing falls inside of the intake leading into the engine. We're going to clean this area during the installation process. For now, let's just go ahead and protect it. I'm putting a cover over the top. Obviously, you can secure this any way you deem fit, as long as nothing will make its way into the engine. Now we can start removing our ignition coil. The process for one is going to be the same for any of them. As far as the ignition coil, we want to start with our electrical connector. When you look at these, you're going to find you have a small red locking tab that needs to be dislodged. Typically, this just slides towards what would be the outboard side of the engine, whether you're working on the front or the rear. After that, you're going to press in on the locking tab located just inside of where that red tab is. You can try doing this by hand. If you find you have a hard time, you can make your way along the inboard side, close to the coil, and gently pry upward on the locking tab, and this should slide out of place. A quick inspection for corrosion. If you see any, it needs to be taken care of. We'll set that aside. Now we have an 8mm headed mounting bolt. Let's go ahead and remove that. A thorough inspection of that hardware. Continuing on, we're going to remove the ignition coil. Take hold of it. You can give it a slight spin. We're attempting to break the boot free from the spark plug located inside. Now it's time for the installation of our brand new ignition coil. On our coils, you're going to find that it already came pre-lubricated in the end that slides over our spark plug. We'll go ahead and take this and slide it into place. As we start sliding this down, we can give it a gentle twist. We're attempting to press it down as far as possible, but we also want to make sure we align our mounting bolt port. As far as that mounting bolt, once you have it aligned, we're going to be pressing down on the ignition coil, and then we're going to snug up that mounting bolt. The torque for this will be 89 inch-pounds. Once we're sure that that's secure, it's time for our electrical connector. As far as this electrical connector, we're going to line it up, we'll press it in, we'll listen for an audible click. Once you heard that, double check to make sure it's secure, and we'll lock it in with the red locking tab as well. Perfect. And now at this point, you want to replace all other ignition coils. The process will be the same. One last quick inspection in this area, and we can start removing the covering from along the lower intake. As we remove this, we want to make sure that nothing falls inside of the engine. This is extremely important. You may need to use a flat razor blade. If you do have to scrape, make sure you scrape out and away from your engine. We're not trying to scrape into any of these ports. Now I'll be using a clean rag. I've sprayed some parts cleaner directly on it. We don't need to spray into the engine. Before we start resting the upper plastic intake on top of the lower intake, we're looking along the bottom. This is where we will have some seals. If you're not planning on replacing these, you at least need to make sure you clean them down and double check to make sure they're not damaged in any way. If it feels like they're hardened or cracked in any way, you're just going to want to replace them. When I wipe the seal down, I'm only using a clean rag. I don't want to use any type of detergent. You may find that you have some oil in this area, and that's fine. Double checking that seal. Let's rest this in place. Before you start installing any of your hardware, double check to make sure that you're properly seated. You may find that it might be a little off kilter, in which case you may cause damage. Now that I have this in place, I'm continuing on with my hardware. When installing your mounting bolt, you remember that we had one bolt that was longer than all others. The longer bolt is going to go in through this port here. We're just bringing this down and through, and we're going to start it in by hand, but we are not tightening any of our hardware until every piece is started in. Once we have each piece started in and snugged, we're going to torque all of them to 89 inch-pounds, and this is all going to be done in a specific order. That was our longer bolt, so we're on to all other shorter mounting bolts now. Now they're all started in by hand. We're going to be snugging and torquing these in that specific sequence, so let's get started with that. We're going to start down here for our first mounting bolt. Making our way towards a larger bolt here. Back side of the passenger corner here. Moving on to the front on the passenger side. Front over on the driver's side here. This one's tucked in behind our wiring harness. And now to the rear. 89 inch-pounds in that same sequence. For good measure, let's go around a second time, same sequence. Now we're going to start securing this area as well. You're going to find that there's a mounting point along the bottom. You're just aligning it with the plastic intake and pressing it down. We'll continue down the line once you have everything lined up. Double check, make sure that's secured. Let's make our way along the back side. We have a couple of hoses there. Now as we start reaching along the back, we have the hose that was coming off of our PCV valve on the valve cover. Line it up, press it up against the intake here. Now, as you can tell, I'm not completely pressed on. We need to continue on until it's completely bottomed out. Continuing on, we're going to squeeze the clamp and we'll attempt to slide it into the same positioning as where we had removed it from. Now I'm trying to pull that off of the intake. It should not slide out of place. We'll continue on to the next hose as we move towards the driver's side. Let's continue on with reconnecting our throttle body electrical connector. Red locking tab facing towards the center of the engine. Pressing it down. Audible click. Lock it in with the red locking tab. So now we're going to take our power wire and we're coming all the way over here. As we start pressing this in, we need to make sure that our white locking tab starts pressing towards that firewall. Okay, pulls right in. Double check, make sure that's secured. We'll secure the wiring harness to its mounting point. Now let's start looking at our valve here. Before we start securing it into its mounting bracket, let's continue on with the line first. Now, one thing I want to mention about this is we still have to reinstall our yellow locking tab. If you are looking at the yellow locking tab, you can tell that I have an area that protrudes out. It's facing towards the battery. If you're looking at the connector, you can see exactly which way this needs to go. Let's go ahead and slide this onto the plastic intake just behind the throttle body. After that, we'll get our yellow locking tab in place as well. Pressing this on here. Now I have this aligned, so I'm just going to continue on locking it in. We'll double check to make sure that's secured. Typically it can move around, but it should not be able to slide out of place. Now let's continue on securing the valve. As we start looking at this, along the backside, you can see our locking tab. The locking tab will have to fit into this slot. So we're going to slide this entire bracket over. We'll listen for our click, and we'll continue on with our electrical connector. Now I have my wiring harness, so I have my locking tab facing straight up. Press it in, audible click there. And I have my 8mm headed mounting bolt. We're going to start this in, we'll snug it up. Looking into the throttle body, we'll remove our protector. And then the same thing as far as the upper air filter housing. Double check to make sure there's no miscellaneous debris in either of these areas. We're going to install the inlet tube. When we go to do this, don't forget that we still have 2 tubes to attach to it. This one's the easiest to forget. Now, as far as the inlet tube, we need to make sure we have it in the proper orientation. One side will have a larger port here, which is for the forward side. It's going to plug right in here. Looking along the other side, we have a small porthole, and that's for the other tube. Press this onto the throttle body as far as possible, and we'll tighten our clamp. Now I've got my 8mm socket on here. I'm just double checking to make sure I'm completely on the throttle body, and now I'll snug it up. All the way over towards the air filter housing, we're going to align this area as well. Tighten our 8mm headed clamp. Double check, make sure that's secured. And now we can continue on to the hose along the back side here. Just go ahead and line that up. You're going to press it straight in. Double check to make sure that's secured in place. Let's continue on along the front. We'll just lift this up so we can gain access along the bottom. Line up our tube. You're going to press it in. You should see this locking clip move. It's going to go around it. And then, of course, we're going to try to slide this out of place. It is locked in. Now it's time for the negative battery terminal. We're going to take this, press it onto the battery post as far as possible, and we'll tighten our 10mm piece of hardware. Double check, make sure that's secured in place. Okay friends, we finished our installation. Now the next thing you want to do is start the vehicle. You want to let it run, make sure you have no check engine light and no running condition, close the hood and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.